So here's the quick run through of hot topics in ecology that tend to show up on the AP exam. As always, I fully endorse the vodcast that Paul Anderson has. You may want to go watch some of his other ecology ones. They're fabulous. You did some of them for the spring break worksheet. You want to go over that, and our spring break unit. And then this just sort of fills in the gaps of a summary. So ecology is known as the study of interactions between organisms and their environments. And you can describe in a whole lot of things. So you're going to see a lot of questions that you're going to be able to handle just by thinking about that. Two terms to know: abiotic and biotic. Abiotic refers to everything that is not living: temperature, water, light, nutrients. They're parts of the environment that are there, the abiotic factors. Biotic, everything that's an organism that's part of an individual's environment. You'll often see those referred to in different ways. I like to refer to this nomenclature that they break down the different kinds of ecology study as a pyramid, with this being the tippy top, the smallest thing, the organismal ecology, the way an organism deals with its environment, getting a little bigger. A population is a group in a particular area. Getting a little bit bigger, community is all organisms that are in a particular area, not just the same population. Ecosystem, now getting a lot bigger, and now you start talking about the flow of energy and the cycling of chemicals between the abiotic and the biotic. You can imagine plants take in abiotic chemicals like CO2 and make it into a biotic, make it into sugar molecules, which are then part of the plant, when the plant is biotic. And then the biosphere would be the whole big thing, the bottom of the pyramid, the entire portion of the Earth that's inhabited by life. You could talk about terrestrial biomes and then aquatic biomes, and we'll talk about those next. Biome is another vocab word to describe different locations. And this terrestrial biome picture shows you, basically it's, I'm going to jump to this one. You can describe a lot of the biomes by how warm they are versus how cold they are, and then how dry and how wet they are. Then these are some of the names. I'll show you some pictures in a second, but thinking about the globe, and you guys have certainly done enough geography, world history to know different parts of the world. We've got, you start down here, tundra, Arctic and alpine areas, polar, those are complete ice. Words that you may not have been too familiar with: coniferous forest, the conifers, so think pine trees here, northwest parts of our country. Another word for this, and I'll have a picture of it in a second, is taiga. They sometimes use those two words synonymously. Temperate deciduous forest, think New Jersey, New York City, East Coast, trees that lose their leaves, gets cold in the winter, warm in the summer. Temperate grassland, kind of the middle prairie kind of area of our country. We live in probably the desert slash chaparral Mediterranean environment, so you can't, we're that little orange bit right there, chaparral, we're like here. Kind of dry summers, a little bit of wet winters, moderate temperatures all around. I can go on and on, but you know what I'm talking about. And again, here's just some more names. Think about how cold and warm it is and how wet and dry. We know the polar bears live in the polar biome where there's a lot of ice. Tundra. Tundra is very low temperature, short summer, lots of permafrost, so mostly frozen, sometimes only a little while in the summertime you can let some things grow. So this is a couple different words to describe, kind of going down a little bit in the globe. If you start thinking of Canada, the upper northwest into the United States, the boreal forest biome is made up of conifers. Those are the pine trees. It's also sometimes the stands of trees are called a taiga, and it's considered to be the largest terrestrial biome. We've got some temperate biomes, and these would be the grasslands and the prairies. Then you've got the tropical biomes. Usually a lot of diversity in the tropical biomes because of the moderate temperatures in these guys, and then the water. Then as you get into more dry areas, you got the high deserts and savannas. I think you guys have a good picture of that. Species, you can study ecological niches of different species. You see how high in density of there's just species of different birds gets in the more tropical areas. There are aquatic biomes, and you can describe it as freshwater, lakes and rivers. Estuaries are a lot of the locations where the rivers meet the ocean. So living in San Diego, we can see a lot of that. We have freshwater lakes, we have rivers that run to the ocean, and then if you just drive up along I-5 from, say, the Orange County border all the way down to the south of San Diego, you can go through a bunch of different estuaries. Right by Del Mar, there's the estuary that runs past the fairgrounds and the track. That's where the water dumps into the ocean. There's a big estuary up by La Costa between Encinitas between Encinitas and Solana Beach, and then again north of that by La Costa. Again, that's where the fresh water meets the ocean water. Estuaries are a place where there's a lot of diversity in animal life and fish life and bird life, because it's a protected area to raise young. It's also water that is partially salted, so it's called brackish. It also can support a lot of life. Intertidal zones, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. We have places where coral reefs are very prevalent. Pelagic, it's pretty deep ocean, and abyssal is very deep ocean. That's these little pits here. I went through a lot of these. Excuse that background, sorry about that. Oligotrophic lakes are deep and nutrient poor, and eutrophic lakes are shallower. They have high nutrient content, and they, I wonder if I can just get rid of that. Oops, nope, don't want to do that. They have high nutrient content, sometimes from runoff from farms and fertilizers that come from the farms and from population areas. Eutrophied lakes are usually bad. They usually have an explosion of population, they use up the oxygen, and then everything dies. Streams and rivers, actually something to note is that streams are very turbulent, which makes for a high oxygen content. So the water is tumbling and fixing a lot of oxygen in the water, not fixing it, or collecting a lot of oxygen. For things that can hang on to the ground, you can make a lot of algae and plants, support a very diverse food chain. Wetlands, not only at the estuaries but that are here, but also internal. There's a lot of wetlands in the middle of the United States. A lot of wetlands were filled in and built over, and they're realizing that they really need to recreate them again to be buffers for flooding and be a rich biome to allow for animals and plants to develop. Some terms for the zones. Again, the benthic zone is everything that's against the dirt layer, so basically the edge, whether it's at the tide edge or at the deep part. We have the photic zone, that's the layer where the light goes through and you have the most photosynthesis going on, and the aphotic zone would be when you have a lot less light coming through, so you're going to have a lot less photosynthesis going on. I don't see the lake terms used so much, but you may see the marine terms used. Again, intertidal, we know what that is. Special kinds of plants and animals can survive there. Benthic zone is everything along the crust or the edge. Abyssal zone, very deep. Pelagic is also very deep, and we also have the photic and the aphotic zones there. We talked a little bit the other day about energy flowing through a system. Again, this is something you can describe. You do have to know about how light energy comes in. Plants convert that light energy into food, and they grow. They become a source of food for herbivores and so on. So let's take a look at both a terrestrial food chain and a marine food chain. And pretty much now they don't even like to refer to it as chains. I'll have it here simply for ease of labeling things, but they also call it a food web because you'll see interdependence and crossing over between different levels of the chain. So again, the primary producers are the plants on terrestrial, plankton and other protista, maybe algae in the marine environment. Herbivores eat those. Ginger wants to go outside. Herbivores eat those, and then the carnivores eat those. And then we have tertiary consumers and quaternary consumers who are eating all those other guys. Energy moving up the food chain loses a little bit of energy each time. Where's the diagram for that? Here we go. So if the caterpillar eats about 200 joules of energy fixed by a plant, about half of that goes away as waste. 33 joules go into growth, and 67 joules go to cellular respiration to basically keep that bugger making ATP and stuff. So if we turn our food chain upside down here and put primary producers on the bottom, or the basis of the food web, they convert a fraction of the sunlight into biomass. 10% gets lost at the next level, another 10%, another 10%. Finally, you really cannot support any more consumers above that because there's just not enough energy left for them to eat. That's why that you kind of top out with the killer whale in the ocean and lions and those kind of things on the land. Let's see if I'm going to go back to those pictures. This is just an interesting picture about productivity. High productivity in the warm areas, as you would expect, the warm and wet. Low productivity in the desert areas where they're very dry and so on. We'll go back to those questions another time. So then we can talk about nutrient cycling. We know that, let's see, organic materials, living organisms, and then detritus is something that basically the fungus and the bacteria are going to live on. If they all die and get buried, we know that organic material can be converted into coal, oil, and peat. It's a carbon source. We can burn those and release the carbon back up in the atmosphere, and then it gets fixed again. So that's a cycle right there. Inorganic materials, like in the ground, can get weathered and get it made into rock, and then they can weather, and we can cycle this way. So you can get questions all about that. And then from probably kindergarten, the whole water cycle. I'm not going to go over that too much. Evaporation into clouds. Clouds move over the land. Dry, they rain, and then they trickle down back into the ocean. The carbon cycle, I just explained that in that other diagram. Basically, plants fix the CO2. Consumers eat the plants, release the CO2. Sometimes they get decomposed by other things. We burn the CO2 and the fossil fuels, and we release more CO2 in the atmosphere. And we all know that too much CO2 collection creates the greenhouse gases and global warming, but we'll not talk about that in this one just because there's not enough time. We did go over the nitrogen cycle before. I definitely recommend you going and taking a look at that. This is the plants take up nitrogen, not as N2. They need bacteria to fix it for them. They need nitrifying bacteria to convert it into a form that they can use, and so on. Phosphorus is also in a cycle. Basically, it runs off from the dirt, and then it also gets recycled into different living creatures, and voila. That's everything that we wanted to talk about in this slide, or in this presentation. The growth curves, definitely want to go over those because we'll probably see questions like that too.